work.
Then there was some of the other hymns then. Why don't you talk about, and we'll see them come up on the screen, some of the other hymn-inspired paintings that you did.
I paint a lot of things. I paint very eclectically, so I have a broad range of subjects, and I usually do a Christian piece based on a traditional Christian hymn about 1 to 2 times a year. His Eyes on the Sparrow gave birth to another hymn painting called Rise to Greet the Sun, which then led to another one called Jesus Shine. The painting is called Shine, but it's based on the hymn Jesus Bids Us Shine.
And that's the painting that has the candle with the feather.
With the quill pen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe we can, there it is there.
There it is, yeah. It's based on the words that say, Jesus bids us shine with the clear, pure light, like a little candle burning in the night. In this world of darkness, you and I must shine, you in your small corner, and I in mine. From that hymn, I pray about this. So I knew that hymn as a child. I grew up knowing that hymn, but the next one that I painted was not a hymn that I knew, and it's a hymn called This Is My Father's World. And turns out an awful lot of people know that hymn. I have such a strong reaction to it. When people come into my booth or my area at an art show, sometimes they'll burst into tears when they look at this, because they will see the shadow of the cross on the sheet music. It's based on the second line that says, this is my Father's world, the birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. And I have to say that I don't take credit entirely for that composition. I had the idea, I knew I wanted to have a bird to reflect the bird, but the day I went out to this homestead, because all the pieces, the elements in this painting reflect the era when the hymn was written or composed. When I got out to the homestead to paint this painting, the light was shining through the window in such a way as to cause the shadow of the cross. And it was clearly a message to me from God, don't forget the cross. And that is the message that I witness people receiving when they see this image.
It's beautiful, and I saw it right away, because everything we say and do as believers in Jesus reflects ultimately the cross of Jesus. Our lives should be a reflection of that, our work, our talent, and you have done that so beautifully.
I think there was one other hymn that was on, I think we have coming up on the screen.
Yes, this is the most recent piece that I've released as a limited edition. It's based on the hymn In the Garden. However, the painting is titled Passion. Passion, when spelled with a capital P, is defined by Webster's dictionary as the sufferings and death of Jesus Christ. So I wanted to do a painting that symbolized the entire concept. So this painting, I've chosen a rose to symbolize Jesus. The hymn is the hymn In the Garden that talks about, I come to the garden alone while the dew is still in the roses. However, I use the rose to symbolize Jesus. The bird in the painting is a bird that is an indigenous migrant to Israel, and it is called a masked shrike. Masked shrikes are predatory songbirds. They are a bird that impales their victims on thorns or hangs them from the forks of sapling limbs. And I have to say, when I was researching what bird to put on this piano, I struggled with the picture that bird conjured up, the violence. And as I researched, God impressed on me, no, that is the bird he wanted me to use in this painting. And so I placed it with its back to the rose and its face turned away to symbolize and represent humanity, to represent what we did at Calvary to Jesus, which is the name of the other hymn on the other page of the painting, is Calvary. And you know, I prayed about it to God when I was writing the text. Each of these pieces is accompanied by a text that describes the inspiration, because when those paintings go out into the world, when those reproductions go out into the world, I want them to plant seeds, and I want them to be out there witnessing to what Jesus did for us in people's homes. And I was struggling so much with the violent image that this was conjuring up, and I said, okay, Lord, why am I feeling this way? Because I'd never struggled with shame or embarrassment regarding my art. It's the first time I've been able to find a comfortable way to witness to people was through my art as a vehicle. And I prayed about it, and that night, the night I prayed about it, I went to bed, and at 4 in the morning my eyes flew open, and I woke up, and what came to me was, but Kelly, most importantly, the painting in its entirety is about what Jesus Christ did for us. So once I composed my text and summarized it with that, it just, I had a peace. And that is what witnesses to people when they see the work.
That's beautiful. Now, Kelly, and by the way, at crossroads.ca, our website, you can link to Kelly's website. You can find out a lot more and see a lot more of her work. But Kelly, you see parallels between your process of painting and your walk with God, don't you?
Yes, I do. Painting is not easy for me. It is a struggle. I think people have this vision that an artist just goes into their studio and sits down and just creates, and that it flows from their fingertips. Now, I have to admit that every once in a while God blesses me with that moment, where a painting just kind of, I finish it and I go, who did that, when I look at it. But for the most part, it's a struggle. I paint in pastels, which is basically, most people would maybe perceive it as chalk or a stick. It's pure pigment, and you're embedding that pigment into the paper by drawing it across the nap. And when I'm painting, find that I need to layer it in many, many layers. I'll do a stroke, and it crumbles, and it'll blotch on my painting. And so I'll have to do another corrective stroke, and then another corrective stroke, and I'll be working on the pupil of an eye, and it'll just be about perfect, and I'll bring that stick around, and it'll blop again. So I find that my work is a series of corrections, one after the other. And what God showed me is that, he said, Kelly, if you got it right the first time, if you just sat down and did it and you got it right the first time, your painting would be very superficial and shallow. And very much like my life. If I was to get it right the first time, every time I attempted something, I would never have any basis to learn anything, to be able to learn from my mistakes. And I would probably be very superficial and shallow. And what he showed me is that Jesus was the only one who got it right the first time. And when I'm painting, I have this image in my head of what I would like to create. God gives me an idea, and my focus is to narrow the gap between what I see in my head and what I end up with on paper. And I'm always striving to narrow that gap. And what he showed me, what God showed me, was that Jesus narrowed the gap for us. And that's what I'm doing here, is I'm striving to be more like Jesus. And he helps me to do that by helping me to learn from my mistakes and to move forward and to get over the hump. And then eventually it comes together, because God really does work everything together for good.
And Kelly, what a beautiful picture God has created in you. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for bringing your artwork. Thank you for your story, the many layers of your story. It's not, as you said, it's not superficial. There's a lot there. And as we allow God to begin to work in our lives, he begins to uncover some of the layers and infuse his beauty and his love and his grace where it needs to be. So Kelly, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.